Do you ever think about those Christmas gifts from the 1980s? The ones you begged for until your voice went hoarse, only to hear your parents say they were too expensive? These gifts filled catalog pages and television commercials, promising joy that seemed just out of reach. The Apple IIe home computer was the ultimate status symbol, hiding inside every electronics store during the 1980s, glowing with green text and the promise of a future most families could only imagine from a distance. Kids pressed their faces against department store windows, watching the cursor blink, dreaming of typing their own programs and playing games that looked nothing like anything on television. Parents saw something else entirely when they checked the price tag, a number so staggering it could cover months of car payments or utility bills. The machine was marketed as an investment in education, a tool that would prepare children for careers that did not even exist yet, but that argument rarely survived the walk from the display case to the cash register. Some families saved for years, while others simply changed the subject whenever the computer came up at dinner. Kids who received one became instant legends, their homes transformed into gathering spots where friends crowded around to witness the magic. For everyone else, the Apple IIe remained a glowing dream on a catalog page, circled in crayon but never wrapped in holiday paper. The Nintendo Entertainment System arrived in American living rooms like a spaceship landing in the middle of a toy aisle, promising experiences that blew away everything that came before. The gray box with its blinking red light became the obsession of an entire generation, fueled by commercials showing kids defeating dragons and saving galaxies without leaving the couch. But when parents flipped to the price in the holiday catalog, the excitement often crashed harder than a poorly timed jump over a bottomless pit. The console alone cost more than most families budgeted for an entire Christmas, and that did not even include the games, which demanded their own small fortunes. Kids practiced their begging techniques for weeks, presenting arguments about hand-eye coordination, but the math rarely added up. Some families pooled resources from grandparents and uncles just to make the dream happen. Others watched as classmates bragged about conquests in the Mushroom Kingdom, wondering when their turn would come. The Nintendo became a dividing line between those who had and those who waited, hoped, and kept circling the catalog page. The original Sony Walkman represented freedom in a way no other gadget of the 1980s could match, a tiny silver rectangle that let you carry your favorite music wherever your feet decided to wander. Kids imagined jogging through the neighborhood or skating down sidewalks with their own private soundtrack playing through those foam-covered headphones. The commercials made it look effortless, showing teenagers gliding through life with music only they could hear, completely untethered from the bulky stereos that anchored everyone else to their living rooms. But freedom, as parents quickly pointed out, came with a price that seemed wildly unreasonable for something that fit in a pocket. The Walkman cost more than most boomboxes, and the cassette tapes to feed it demanded their own ongoing investment. Some families compromised with cheaper knockoff brands that ate tapes and drained batteries twice as fast. The authentic Sony sat in glass cases at the mall, practically glowing under fluorescent lights, always visible and never quite affordable. It became the gift kids stopped asking for out loud, even though the wish never really faded. Cabbage Patch Kids exploded into the 1980s with a ferocity that turned ordinary toy stores into battlegrounds and ordinary parents into desperate competitors willing to do almost anything. Each doll came with its own adoption certificate, a unique name, and a soft, squishy face that kids found irresistible and parents found baffling given the price attached. The demand outpaced supply so dramatically that stores reported actual fistfights in the aisles, with adults shoving each other to grab the last doll on the shelf. Scalpers bought them by the armload and resold them at triple the price, turning a simple stuffed toy into a black market commodity. Parents who refused to pay the markup faced tearful children who could not understand why Santa seemed to favor other families. Some kids received knockoff versions that almost looked right but never captured the magic. The craze eventually faded, but for a few wild seasons, these pudgy-faced dolls represented everything frantic about 80s consumer culture. They were proof that demand could outrun supply, and that parents would do almost anything except pay scalper prices. Power Wheels ride on vehicles transformed driveways into racetracks, and backyards into adventure zones, giving kids the chance to feel grown up behind a plastic steering wheel. The commercials showed children cruising through suburban landscapes, honking tiny horns and waving at envious neighbors, living the dream of independence years before they could reach real pedals. Parents watched those commercials with a different expression, mentally calculating the cost of the vehicle, the rechargeable battery, and inevitable repairs. The price tags on these battery-powered machines rivaled some actual used cars, a comparison parents made frequently and loudly. Some families waited for post-holiday clearance sales, hoping to snag a deal while their children outgrew the recommended age range. Others steered conversations toward bicycles, which offered similar freedom at a fraction of the price. The lucky few who received Power Wheels became neighborhood celebrities, offering rides to friends and charging imaginary tolls. For everyone else, the commercials played on, showing a world where kids drove themselves and parents never flinched. The Atari 2600 gaming console brought the arcade experience home at a time when quarters disappeared into machines faster than allowances could replace them. Families gathered around television sets watching blocky graphics that somehow felt revolutionary, controlling paddles and joysticks that connected them to entire universes of pixelated adventure. Kids memorized high scores, traded game cartridges like precious currency, and spent entire weekends mastering games that today would fit on a device smaller than a fingernail. But before any of that could happen, someone had to pay the entry fee, and the Atari was not cheap by any measure of 80s budgets. The console represented a significant investment, and the cartridges needed to make it worthwhile added up faster than parents anticipated. Some families split the cost across birthdays and holidays, financing their entertainment system one occasion at a time. Others watched from the outside as friends demonstrated the latest games, returning home to board games while dreaming of joysticks. The Atari defined a generation, but it also defined kids who learned that some dreams required patience and parents who eventually said yes. Teddy Ruxpin arrived on toy shelves with animatronic eyes, a moving mouth, and a cassette player hidden in his back that brought storytelling into the technological age. Kids watched in amazement as the bear's face moved in sync with recorded tales, creating an illusion of companionship that felt genuinely magical in an era before smartphones. Parents watched the price tag with considerably less amazement, noting that this talking bear cost more than some actual furniture in the house. The technology that made Teddy special also made him expensive, and the tapes required to keep him talking demanded ongoing investment like a furry subscription service. Some children received Teddy Ruxpin and treasured him for years, carefully rewinding tapes and protecting those motorized features. Others encountered cheaper imitations that moved jerkily and sounded muffled. The commercials promised a best friend who would never tire of telling stories, but friendship came with terms most families could not meet. Teddy Ruxpin became the bear that represented both the wonder and frustration of 80s toy marketing, a companion priced just beyond reach. Laser tag home game sets promised futuristic warfare in the backyard, complete with blinking chest sensors, space-age pistols, and the kind of running around that parents usually encouraged until they saw the receipt. The commercials showed kids diving behind bushes, flanking opponents, and celebrating victories with the confidence of actual soldiers who happened to be 12 years old. Every neighborhood wanted to host the ultimate laser tag battle, but hosting required equipment that demanded the kind of money that made parents suggest flashlight tag instead. The starter sets included only enough gear for 2 players, meaning full-scale wars demanded multiple purchases that multiplied the expense. Some families bought one set and watched their children take turns, which missed the entire point but satisfied budgets. Others received laser tag and discovered the magic faded once the novelty wore off and the batteries drained. The equipment ended up in closets, then garages, then yard sales, passed along to the next hopeful warriors. But for those few glorious weeks when everything was new, nothing felt more futuristic or impossibly cool. The G.I. Joe USS Flagg aircraft carrier dominated toy catalogs with a presence that seemed almost absurd, a playset so massive it required its own dedicated room and its own dedicated savings account. The ship stretched over 7 feet long, featured multiple levels, working elevators, and enough surface area to stage battles that rivaled actual military operations. Kids stared at the catalog photographs for hours, imagining their action figures patrolling the decks and launching jets against Cobra attacks that would finally have proper scale. Parents stared at the price for considerably shorter periods before delivering the verdict that crushed holiday hopes across the nation. The Flagg cost more than many families spent on all their children's presents combined, transforming the aircraft carrier from a toy into a symbol of everything unattainable. Some kids pooled birthday money for years, only to discover the Flagg had been discontinued before they saved enough. Others received smaller G.I. Joe vehicles, perfectly satisfying but never matching the dream of commanding the flagship. The USS Flagg became legendary precisely because so few kids owned one. The Commodore 64 personal computer sat at the intersection of gaming and education, promising parents a machine that would prepare their children for the future while secretly delivering some of the best video games of the decade. The beige keyboard connected to television sets and transformed living rooms into programming studios, game arcades, and windows into a digital world just beginning to open. Kids taught themselves BASIC, traded software on floppy disks, and spent hours typing code from magazines just to watch simple programs run. The price made parents hesitate despite every reasonable argument about educational value that children could assemble. The Commodore cost less than the Apple, but still more than most families allocated for any single gift, hovering in that frustrating zone between affordable and impossible. Some households justified the expense by calling it a family computer, even though everyone knew exactly who would monopolize the keyboard. Others waited for prices to drop, watching newer models arrive while the original became obsolete. The Commodore 64 represented possibility itself, a gateway to skills that would define careers for decades to come. The complete Pound Puppies collection tugged at heartstrings with those sad, droopy eyes that seemed to beg for rescue from every toy store shelf in the 1980s. Each plush dog came with its own adoption certificate, personality card, and the promise that somewhere out there, more puppies needed saving. Kids fell in love with one and immediately wanted the entire pound, not understanding that the collection was designed to empty wallets one adorable face at a time. Parents did the math and realized that completing the set would cost more than adopting an actual dog from the local shelter. Some families compromised with one or two puppies, leaving children to imagine the rest of the pack waiting patiently in imaginary kennels. Others watched their kids arrange and rearrange the same few dogs, creating elaborate rescue scenarios that never quite felt complete. The marketing genius behind Pound Puppies lay in making every single dog feel essential, as if leaving one behind was somehow cruel. It was emotional manipulation, wrapped in soft fabric and button eyes, and it worked beautifully on children while draining budgets dry. Backyard trampolines represented the ultimate dream of defying gravity without leaving your own property, a giant bouncing circle that promised endless hours of jumping, flipping, and laughing until the sun went down. Kids saw them in backyards during car rides and immediately began campaigning for their own, imagining the tricks they would learn and the friends they would impress. Parents saw something entirely different: a massive price tag, complicated assembly instructions, and visions of broken bones requiring expensive emergency room visits. The trampolines sold in department stores during the 1980s cost more than most families spent on outdoor furniture, and that was before factoring in the safety enclosures that cautious parents insisted upon. Some families saved for years, finally presenting the trampoline as a combination birthday and Christmas gift that covered multiple occasions at once. Others discovered that neighborhood kids with trampolines became very popular very quickly, solving the problem through strategic friendship. The dream of owning one never quite faded for kids who spent their childhoods jumping on borrowed equipment. The Rainbow Bright Color Cottage was a pastel dreamland packed into a carrying case, promising little girls an entire world of colorful adventures they could take anywhere their imagination decided to wander. The cottage opened to reveal rooms, furniture, and spaces designed for Rainbow Bright and her sprite friends to live out stories that sparkled with 80s optimism and joy. Commercials showed children playing for hours, their faces lit with the kind of happiness that made every parent want to provide that exact experience. But the cottage itself was just the beginning, because populating it properly required purchasing the dolls, the sprites, and the accessories that transformed empty plastic into a functioning magical kingdom. Parents quickly realized that the initial price was merely an invitation to spend far more than they originally planned. Some children received the cottage and made do with whatever characters they already owned, adapting their stories to fit available resources. Others stared at the cottage in catalogs, circling it hopefully while knowing deep down that the rainbow would have to wait for another year. Castle Grayskull stood at the center of the Masters of the Universe toy line, a skull-faced fortress that every He-Man fan desperately needed to complete their collection and their imagination. The castle opened to reveal trapdoors, working drawbridges, and enough space to stage epic battles between the forces of good and evil that dominated Saturday morning cartoons. Kids who owned Grayskull became the natural hosts for neighborhood playdates, their bedrooms transformed into battlegrounds where action figures clashed in conflicts that lasted entire afternoons. The problem was that the castle cost as much as several action figures combined, forcing parents to choose between the fortress and the warriors who would defend it. Some families made the investment and watched their children spend years getting full value from every plastic turret and hidden compartment. Others bought the figures instead, staging battles on couch cushions and carpet landscapes that worked perfectly well without the official headquarters. Castle Grayskull became the line between casual fans and dedicated collectors, a plastic monument to both 80s marketing and parental sacrifice. A family VCR represented the gateway to a completely new way of experiencing movies during the 1980s, a machine that could capture television programs and play rented tapes that brought Hollywood directly into living rooms. Kids understood immediately that owning a VCR meant watching favorite movies whenever they wanted, rewinding the best scenes over and over, and never missing a show because of bedtime or homework. Parents understood something else entirely: the staggering price of the machine itself, plus the ongoing cost of rentals, blank tapes, and the inevitable repairs when someone jammed the mechanism trying to retrieve a stuck cassette. The VCR was marketed as a family gift, something everyone would enjoy together, which conveniently spread the expense across the entire household rather than landing on any single child's wish list. Some families saved for months, finally unwrapping the machine on Christmas morning with the kind of ceremony usually reserved for major appliances. Others discovered that the VCR was always next year's priority, perpetually delayed by more urgent expenses that somehow never stopped appearing. The microwave oven arrived in 80s kitchens like a visitor from the future, promising to revolutionize cooking with technology that seemed almost impossible to believe. Kids watched in amazement as food heated in minutes instead of hours, as popcorn exploded into fluffy kernels without a stovetop, and as leftovers transformed from cold disappointments into hot meals faster than anyone thought possible. Parents marveled at the convenience while wincing at the price, which placed microwave ovens firmly in the category of luxury appliances rather than everyday necessities. Some families received microwaves as wedding gifts or major anniversary presents, treating them with the reverence usually reserved for fine china and heirloom jewelry. Others waited patiently for prices to drop, watching neighbors heat their dinners through kitchen windows while their own food slowly warmed on conventional stoves. The microwave became a status symbol of sorts, proof that a family had embraced the future even when the future cost several $100s. It was the gift that fed everyone, literally, making it easier to justify than toys that only benefited the children. Speak and Spell promised to make children smarter through the magic of electronic voices and glowing red letters that spelled out words one character at a time. The chunky orange device became a symbol of educational technology during the 1980s, marketed to parents who wanted their children to gain advantages in school and in life. Kids actually enjoyed using it, which surprised everyone. Tapping out letters and listening to the robotic voice confirm their spelling or gently correct their mistakes. The problem was that this particular path to academic success came with a price tag that made many parents hesitate. especially when cheaper flashcards and workbooks sat on nearby shelves. Some families invested in Speak and Spell and watched their children become genuinely better spellers, validating every dollar spent on batteries and the device itself. Others decided that traditional methods would work just fine, leaving the electronic tutor for families with more flexible holiday budgets. The device lived in that strange space between toy and tool, too fun to be purely educational and too expensive to be a simple plaything. The deluxe Lite-Brite set turned ordinary evenings into glowing art sessions, transforming black paper and colorful pegs into illuminated masterpieces that made every child feel like a real artist. The basic version was affordable enough, but the deluxe edition came with more pegs, more patterns, and the kind of expanded creative possibilities that children immediately recognized as essential. Kids would spend hours placing tiny plastic pieces into precise holes, watching their designs light up with colors that seemed almost magical in darkened bedrooms. Parents watched the peg supply dwindle and realized that maintaining the creative momentum required purchasing refill packs that added up faster than anyone anticipated. Some families embraced the ongoing investment, treating Lite-Brite supplies like art materials worthy of regular restocking and encouragement. Others bought the basic set and taught their children to reuse pegs creatively, turning limitations into lessons about resourcefulness. The deluxe version remained a catalog dream for many kids, proof that even simple pleasures could be priced beyond comfortable reach during the holiday season. The Nintendo Game Boy arrived late in the 1980s, promising portable gaming freedom that would change everything about how and where kids could play their favorite video games. The handheld device featured a tiny screen, surprisingly good graphics for its size, and the ability to take adventures anywhere from car trips to waiting rooms to boring family gatherings that suddenly became tolerable. Kids immediately understood that the Game Boy represented independence, a way to carry entertainment in their pockets without relying on television sets or electrical outlets. Parents understood that this small device carried a large price, especially when factoring in the games required to make it worthwhile and the batteries it consumed at an alarming rate. Some families made the investment and watched their children become inseparable from the gray plastic rectangle that beeped through every spare moment. Others explained that portable gaming would have to wait, perhaps forever, while the Game Boy joined the list of things that cost too much. The device became another dividing line, visible on school buses and playgrounds. The Barbie Dreamhouse stood as the ultimate expression of plastic perfection, a pink palace filled with furniture, accessories, and enough rooms to stage elaborate stories that could last entire childhoods. The house evolved throughout the 1980s, growing taller, adding features, and becoming increasingly expensive with each new version that appeared in catalogs and store displays. Girls stared at the photographs showing every detail, imagining their Barbie dolls living lives of luxury that mirrored the aspirational world the brand represented. Parents stared at the price and wondered how a plastic house could cost nearly as much as actual home repairs that kept getting postponed. Some families combined resources across grandparents, aunts, and uncles to make the dream house happen, treating it as a landmark gift that would provide years of play. Others purchased smaller Barbie accessories and furniture, building a miniature world piece by piece that never quite matched the catalog vision. The dream house remained a symbol of everything the 80s promised and everything that remained slightly out of reach for families watching their budgets carefully. Simon Electronic Memory Game sat on store shelves like a glowing flying saucer, its four colored panels promising hours of competitive fun that tested reflexes and recall in equal measure. The game beeped and flashed in patterns that grew longer and more complex with each successful round, turning living rooms into arenas where siblings and friends battled for bragging rights. Kids loved the simple thrill of watching the lights, hearing the tones, and slapping the correct panel before time ran out and the embarrassing buzzer announced defeat. Parents appreciated that Simon required no batteries for imagination, no ongoing purchases, and no complicated setup beyond finding a flat surface and pressing start. But the price still gave many families pause, especially when cheaper memory games existed that accomplished similar goals without the electronic flair. Some households decided Simon was worth the investment and watched it become a party centerpiece for years to come. Others passed by the display case and explained that memory could be practiced with playing cards that cost almost nothing at all. Simon became another example of how even simple pleasures carried premium prices during the 80s holiday season. Transformers. Metroplex towered over every other figure in the toy line, a massive robot that converted into an entire city complete with roads, ramps, and landing platforms for smaller vehicles. Kids who saw it in catalogs immediately understood that this was the ultimate prize, the centerpiece that would make every other Transformer they owned feel more important. The figure stood over 2 feet tall and weighed enough to require serious shelf reinforcement, a detail parents noticed long before price became the primary concern. But price was definitely a concern because Metroplex cost more than most families spent on a week of groceries, sitting in a category reserved for only the most extravagant gift givers. Some children received Metroplex from grandparents who pooled resources or from parents who saved throughout the entire year, knowing this single request would dominate the holiday. Others learned to appreciate the smaller figures they received, imagining Metroplex standing somewhere in the distance, waiting for a future Christmas that might never quite arrive. The figure became legendary among collectors and dreamers alike, a plastic monument to ambition. The Sega Master System arrived as the scrappy underdog challenging Nintendo's dominance, promising graphics and gameplay that rivaled or exceeded what the leading competition could offer to eager young gamers. Kids who researched both systems knew that Sega had serious potential, with built-in games, sharper visuals, and a library that included titles unavailable anywhere else in the gaming world. Parents saw something simpler, another expensive gaming console that would demand additional cartridge purchases and occupy the television for endless hours. The Master System cost roughly the same as the Nintendo, which meant families rarely bought both and instead chose sides in a format war that divided playgrounds and friendships across the country. Some households picked Sega and discovered a passionate community of fans who appreciated being different from the mainstream crowd. Others stuck with Nintendo simply because more friends owned it, making game swaps easier to arrange. The Master System proved that the 80s had room for competition, even when that competition carried a price tag most families could only afford to pay once. A Casio electronic keyboard transformed bedrooms into concert halls and children into aspiring musicians who believed stardom was only a few lessons away. The keyboards came in various sizes, from compact models with miniature keys to full-sized instruments that required dedicated stands and floor space. Kids loved pressing buttons to discover preset rhythms, layering sounds that made even simple melodies feel like professional productions. Parents appreciated the educational potential, imagining recitals that justified the expense, at least until the initial enthusiasm faded and the keyboard gathered dust. The problem was that decent keyboards cost real money, and the cheap ones sounded tinny enough to discourage practice before skills could develop. Some families invested in quality instruments and watched their children develop genuine musical abilities that lasted beyond childhood. Others compromised with budget models that served their purpose for a season before finding new homes at garage sales and thrift stores. The keyboard represented dreams of creativity, priced somewhere between accessible and aspirational depending on which model caught a child's eye. A real BMX freestyle bike represented the pinnacle of neighborhood cool during the 1980s, a chrome and steel machine that promised jumps, tricks, and freedom that ordinary bicycles could never deliver. Kids studied magazine photos showing professionals catching air over dirt ramps, spinning handlebars, and landing tricks that seemed to defy physics and common sense. Every child wanted the genuine article with mag wheels, pegs, and the exact specifications that separated real BMX from department store imitations. Parents saw a bicycle that cost 3 or 4 times what a perfectly functional 10-speed would cost, built for stunts that seemed designed to produce broken bones and emergency room visits. Some families made the investment and watched their children spend years mastering skills that built confidence, coordination, and genuine athletic ability. Others explained that a regular bike would get you everywhere just as well, leaving the BMX dreams for older kids with paper routes or families with looser budgets. The freestyle bike became the ultimate symbol of 80s childhood aspiration. chrome that gleamed with possibility, and price tags that kept possibility just slightly out of reach. Dollar store stocking stuffers instead of name-brand candy marked Christmas morning with a particular kind of quiet disappointment. In the 1970s, wealthier children pulled brand-name chocolate bars, wrapped caramels, and fancy ribbon candy from their stockings, while poorer kids found off-brand hard candies, generic lollipops, and treats in wrappers no one recognized. The difference was obvious the moment you compared stockings with a friend or cousin. Their candy came in shiny foil with logos everyone knew from television commercials. Yours came in plain cellophane, tasting vaguely chemical and dissolving too quickly on the tongue. Parents filled those stockings late at night, believing children would not notice or would not care, but kids always noticed. They learned to eat their candy alone, hiding the wrappers before anyone could see where the sweets really came from. The shame was not about the candy itself, but about what it revealed, that even something as small as a stocking stuffer had to be stretched, substituted, and quietly apologized for in homes where every penny mattered more than pride. In 1986, laser tag burst onto the scene and brought futuristic backyard battles to life. Using infrared technology, players equipped with laser guns and sensor vests could compete in adrenaline-pumping duels that felt straight out of a sci-fi movie. It was such a huge experience, a blend of high-tech play and action-packed imagination. Laser tag sets were marketed as the game that moves at the speed of light. And for kids who got one under the Christmas tree, it was pure magic. Running around the neighborhood or turning the living room into a battle arena, laser tag encouraged active, creative play. The flashing lights, beeping sensors, and satisfying pew-pew sounds made every match feel like an epic showdown. However, the game wasn't without its quirks. The sensors weren't always reliable, leading to disputes over whether someone was actually hit. And we shall not forget the parents who panicked at the sight of kids running around with toy guns. Despite these challenges, laser tag's popularity soared, spawning tournaments and even a Saturday morning cartoon series. Laser tag is still around, but nothing beats the 80s charm of the original sets. They captured the era's love for high-tech fun and turned backyards into intergalactic battlefields. Bubble lights with methylene chloride fluid were absolutely mesmerizing to children in the 1980s, their colorful tubes gurgling and bubbling as the heat from tiny bulbs brought the mysterious liquid inside to life. Families clipped them onto tree branches and watched the little towers of light dance with movement that seemed magical compared to ordinary static bulbs. Kids pressed their faces close, hypnotized by the rising bubbles that looked like tiny celebrations happening inside each glass tube. The colors glowed warmly, casting reflections across ornaments and tinsel while filling living rooms with that unmistakable holiday atmosphere everyone craved. What nobody realized was that the liquid creating those beautiful bubbles contained methylene chloride, a chemical capable of causing serious harm if the glass cracked or shattered. Parents placed these lights within easy reach of curious hands, never imagining that a broken tube could release dangerous vapors. When researchers documented the risks and regulators intervened, the charming bubble lights of childhood became cautionary examples of how enchanting designs can mask genuine hazards. Using real candles in church pageants and school plays was one of the most beautiful and unnerving traditions of the 1970s. Children walked down aisles holding flickering flames while choirs sang softly, the warm glow reflecting off every wall and making the entire room feel holy and alive. Teachers handed out matches or lighters without hesitation, helping kids ignite candles they barely understood how to hold. There was a reverence in the room that even the adults could feel, a sense that the fire itself was part of the story. No one imagined disaster. They imagined tradition, history, and meaning. And for a few moments, every child felt trusted beyond their years. The scent of melted wax filled the air, becoming part of the memory itself. Today, though, open flames around children are banned in almost every school and most churches. Fire regulations leave no room for risk, even in the name of tradition. But anyone who stood there holding that tiny flame remembers how powerful it felt how it transformed an ordinary evening into something unforgettable. Few gifts captured the imagination of the 1980s, quite like Cabbage Patch Kids. These chubby-cheeked, yarn-haired dolls were the must-have toy of the decade, sparking frenzied holiday shopping sprees and even some infamous store fights. Created by Xavier Roberts and launched in 1983, each doll came with a unique name, birth certificate, and adoption papers, making them feel less like toys and more like members of the family. What set Cabbage Patch Kids apart was their uniqueness. No two dolls were exactly alike, thanks to their hand-stitched features and varied clothing styles. This made owning one feel special and personal. Kids would line up for hours with their parents just to adopt a new friend, while others begged Santa to deliver one on Christmas morning. The dolls became a cultural phenomenon. They were featured in cartoons, carried in parades, and even inducted into the Toy Hall of Fame. Beyond the hype, they taught kids about nurturing and responsibility in their own quirky way. Cabbage Patch Kids remain iconic symbols of 80s childhood. Whether lovingly tucked under the arm of a child or nostalgically displayed by collectors, these dolls continue to evoke warm memories of a simpler time when adopting a cuddly companion made for the perfect Christmas. Gifts wrapped in newspaper instead of proper wrapping paper told a story before the present inside was ever revealed. In the 1970s, wrapping paper cost money that many families simply did not have, especially after scraping together enough to buy even modest gifts. Parents would save newspaper sections, smoothing out the pages and folding them carefully around boxes, sometimes adding a hand-tied bow made from kitchen string or fabric scraps. Children noticed immediately. The comics section was the best option, at least offering color and pictures, but even that looked nothing like the glossy, patterned paper their classmates described. Some kids tried to unwrap their gifts slowly, hoping to hide the newspaper beneath their bodies before anyone saw. Others ripped fast, crumpling the evidence into balls and shoving it behind the couch. The gift inside might have been wonderful, but the wrapping had already announced something the child did not want the world to know. It was a small humiliation, easily dismissed by adults who called it practical or environmentally friendly. But for children, it was one more way the holidays reminded them exactly where their family stood. Angel hair spun fiberglass was the ethereal finishing touch that turned ordinary Christmas trees into something heavenly in the 1980s. Families pulled wispy strands from plastic bags and draped them carefully across branches, creating that soft, cloud-like glow that made every tree look like it belonged in a winter fairy tale. The material caught light beautifully, shimmering with an almost supernatural quality that delighted children who begged to help with decorating. Parents encouraged them to join in, watching tiny fingers stretch the delicate fibers across greenery without any idea what those strands actually contained. Angel hair was made from spun fiberglass, and every touch released microscopic shards that embedded in skin, floated into eyes, and drifted into lungs with each excited breath. Kids often complained of itchy hands or irritated eyes after decorating, symptoms parents dismissed as holiday excitement or dry winter air. When health experts finally identified the respiratory risks and skin irritation caused by these fibers, the dreamy decoration was banned. Angel hair remains a bittersweet memory of how something beautiful could leave invisible damage. Glass ornament string lights that overheated were practically the heartbeat of Christmas decor in the 1970s. When you plugged them in, the whole house lit up with colors that felt warm, deep, and slightly dramatic, something modern LED lights never quite managed to recreate. The bulbs were thick and glossy, the kind you could tap lightly and hear a tiny clink as if they were miniature ornaments in their own right. Every family had at least one set, sometimes passed down from older relatives who swore by their glow. Of course, those bulbs burned hot enough to toast your fingers if you held them too long, but that was part of the charm. You learned to respect them the same way you respected stovetops or ovens. Today, though, anything that overheats even slightly is pulled off the shelves before it ever reaches a living room. Modern electrical codes ban lights with certain wiring thickness and heat output, and anything with a glass bulb is quietly pushed into the category of retro danger. But those lights had personality. They flickered softly, they hummed ever so slightly, and when one bulb went out, the entire string went dark, sending the family into a comedic treasure hunt to find the culprit. That memory stays warm in a way the lights never did, stretching the collection across years of holidays and birthdays. Kids unwrapped Volume M or Volume S and tried to look grateful, knowing their wealthier classmates received entire sets delivered by salesmen in suits. The encyclopedias themselves were beautiful, leather-bound and heavy, filled with photographs and knowledge that mattered for schoolwork. But receiving one letter at a time told the world your family could only afford Christmas in installments. The incomplete set sat on the shelf like a public confession, missing chunks of the alphabet that everyone noticed. Some children grew up with encyclopedias that never reached Z, the final volumes lost to a year when money ran even shorter than usual. Parents believed they were investing in education, building something lasting, but kids often remembered the slow accumulation as a reminder of everything their family could not provide all at once, even when they wanted to. In the world of 80s school supplies, nothing reigned supreme quite like the Trapper Keeper. Created by Mead and launched in the late 1970s, this revolutionary binder hit its peak during the 1980s, becoming a must-have for students everywhere. With its vibrant designs, customizable covers, and handy Velcro flap, the Trapper Keeper was a status symbol. The genius of the Trapper Keeper lay in its organization. Built-in folders, dubbed trappers, kept loose papers secure and neatly categorized. The Velcro closure ensured that no rogue homework assignments would escape. Whether your cover featured geometric patterns, adorable kittens, or futuristic spacescapes, the Trapper Keeper was as much a fashion statement as it was a tool for academic success. But the Trapper Keeper was more than a glorified binder. For kids in the 80s, it symbolized independence and preparation. Owning one meant you were serious about school, or at least looked the part. Teachers either loved or loathed them. The iconic ripping sound of opening the binder could disrupt even the quietest classroom. The Trapper Keeper stayed an icon of 80s nostalgia, fondly remembered by anyone who doodled on its cover during a boring lecture. Its legacy lives on, proving that even school supplies can have personality. Spray-on flocking with chlorinated solvents was the secret weapon for families who wanted their Christmas trees to look freshly dusted with mountain snow. In the 1980s, parents would shake aerosol cans and coat branches, windowsills, and wreaths with white foam that dried into that perfect powdery finish. The smell was sharp and chemical, filling rooms with fumes that lingered long after decorating was done. But nobody thought twice about breathing it in. Kids watched in awe as parents transformed greenery into frosted masterpieces, sometimes helping to spray corners their parents could not reach. The chlorinated solvents inside those cans were powerful enough to simulate snow perfectly, but they also released volatile compounds that accumulated in enclosed spaces throughout the holiday season. Families sat in living rooms surrounded by freshly flocked decorations, inhaling chemicals no one imagined could cause respiratory harm. When scientists connected indoor air quality problems to these sprays, manufacturers were forced to reformulate or discontinue. The ease of creating instant winter magic came with a price nobody saw until damage was done. Lighting fireworks for Christmas Eve or midnight mass was an unexpected but beloved holiday tradition in certain parts of the United States. The winter sky would crack open with bursts of color, echoing through neighborhoods that were otherwise quiet and peaceful. Families bundled up in coats, stood on porches, and watched sparks rain down like tiny stars falling just for them. It was loud, dramatic, and incredibly festive. No one thought much about permits or safety laws or whether fireworks were allowed during the winter season. For many, it was simply a way to make the holy night feel even more magical and exciting. Today, though, fireworks are heavily restricted, and setting them off without approval can lead to fines or even arrest. The sound that once meant celebration now signals a code violation. It is strange how quickly something joyful can shift into something forbidden, but memories of those nights still glow warmly in the hearts of people who lived through them, especially when the air gets cold and the world gets quiet enough to remind them of the past. Sony's Betamax, introduced in 1975, revolutionized home entertainment by allowing users to record TV shows and movies. As the first home video recording system, Betamax gave people the freedom to control when and how they watched media. Despite eventually losing the format war to VHS, Betamax left an undeniable mark on the industry. One of its key strengths was superior video and audio quality. Betamax tapes delivered clearer resolution and richer sound than its competitors, making them a favorite among tech enthusiasts. However, their one-hour recording limit proved impractical compared to VHS tapes, which offered longer recording times. This disadvantage, coupled with VHS's affordability and broader availability through multiple manufacturers, gave VHS the edge in the mass market. Betamax machines, on the other hand, were compact and durable, embodying Sony's commitment to craftsmanship. For many, Betamax symbolized a new era of media freedom. It allowed viewers to record and re-watch shows at their leisure, pause live moments, and create personal video libraries. While Betamax faded from popularity by the late 80s, it set the stage for modern media consumption, introducing the concept of on-demand entertainment, a foundation that streaming services build on today. Betamax may have lost the battle, but it helped ignite a media revolution that changed the way we watch forever. Gifts clearly purchased at gas stations or convenience stores announced last-minute desperation louder than any words. In the 1970s, these small roadside shops stocked a limited selection of cheap toys, novelty items, and random merchandise meant for impulse buyers rather than serious gift givers. Parents who ran out of money or time sometimes grabbed whatever sat on those shelves, wrapping plastic combs, keychains, tiny puzzles, or off-brand stuffed animals that smelled faintly of motor oil and cigarette smoke. Children recognized these gifts immediately, having passed the same spinning racks 100 times while their parents paid for fuel. The packaging was always wrong, too small or too flimsy, the kind of thing meant to hang on a peg rather than sit under a tree. Kids understood what these presents meant without anyone saying a word. Dad had forgotten, or the money had run out, or something had gone wrong in ways no one wanted to explain. The gift itself hardly mattered because the message behind it was so much louder, a confession of failure wrapped in cellophane and handed over with desperate hope that love might somehow cover what money could not. The 1980s were the golden age of VHS tapes, turning movie nights into a home experience like never before. With the rise of VCR, families could finally watch and re-watch their favorite films on demand. From classics like E.T. and Back to the Future to cult hits like The Breakfast Club, VHS tapes were the ultimate gift for movie buffs. Owning a VHS collection was like having your own blockbuster at home. But let's not romanticize it too much. Rewinding tapes after watching was a universally dreaded chore. Be kind, rewind was a moral obligation. And don't even get started on the heartbreak of a VCR chewing up your favorite tape. Interestingly, VHS wasn't the only format competing for dominance. Sony's Betamax offered better quality, but lost the format war due to shorter recording times and higher costs. By the mid-80s, VHS had solidified its place in pop culture. The clunky plastic cases may seem ancient today, but in the 80s, they were pure magic. Owning a VHS tape was about the experience and the bragging rights of having Star Wars at home. G.I. Joe changed everything the moment he marched onto toy shelves in 1964. Marketed not as a doll, but as an action figure, he offered boys the same kind of character-driven play that girls had with Barbie, but with a combat boot twist. The original 12-inch figure came with a military uniform, dog tags, and enough flexibility to strike a pose or take a fall. Kids could swap out his gear, helmets, rifles, backpacks, even scuba suits, and send him off on missions across the living room or backyard battlefield. It was the height of the Cold War, and Joe reflected that tension, but filtered through a child's sense of adventure. Over time, he evolved into a whole universe of characters, vehicles, and storylines. But those first editions were pure, iconic, and endlessly played with. G.I. Joe was a soldier, a sailor, an adventurer. He climbed trees, dove into mud puddles, and slept in shoebox barracks. For many boys growing up in the 1960s, he was the first toy that truly felt like theirs. He was more than plastic. He was valor, imagination, and action rolled into one heroic pose. And every kid who owned one remembers how it felt to gear him up for battle. Lead-painted ceramic Christmas villages were treasured centerpieces in countless 1980s homes, their detailed houses and shops glowing warmly beneath strings of miniature lights. Families collected pieces year after year, building elaborate winter scenes on mantels and display tables that became the heart of holiday decorating. Children loved examining the tiny windows, doors, and figurines, often picking up pieces to look at the intricate details painted with bright, glossy colors. Those vibrant reds, greens, and yellows came from glazes that contained lead, a detail no manufacturer felt compelled to disclose. Every time someone dusted the village, rearranged buildings, or touched the smooth ceramic surfaces, microscopic lead particles transferred onto fingers that later touched faces and food. Parents encouraged children to help set up the display, never suspecting the family tradition was quietly exposing everyone to a dangerous heavy metal. When testing revealed how much lead these decorations contained, regulators demanded changes that ended production of the original formulas. Those cherished villages now carry warnings that transform nostalgia into unease. Unventilated indoor Christmas tree flocking was something that families approached with excitement instead of fear. In the 1970s, grabbing a can of artificial snow and coating the tree right in the middle of the living room felt like the best way to turn your home into a snowy postcard scene. Kids would gather around just to watch the powder fall onto the branches, building up that soft, white layer that made everything feel instantly festive. The smell, the sound, the little cloud that puffed up with every spray all felt like part of the fun. No one opened windows or wore masks or worried about what they were breathing in. The chemicals were just part of the magic, even if nobody knew it then. Today, though, this is the kind of thing that would get you in trouble faster than you could shake the can. Safety codes require ventilation, protective gear, or outright ban certain types of flocking materials. People talk about air quality and respiratory risks and things that were not even part of the vocabulary in the 1970s. Maybe it is for the best, but it is impossible to deny that the old way felt more enchanting. When you see old photos covered in that soft, snowy coating, you can almost smell the faint sweetness of the artificial snow, and remember how proud everyone was of the winter scene they had created indoors. Regifted items still showing previous tags were one of the most painful reminders that Christmas did not land equally on every family. In the 1970s, money stretched thin for millions of households, and parents sometimes resorted to rewrapping gifts received from neighbors or workplace exchanges and placing them under the tree for their own children. The problem was that regifts often carried evidence: a price tag from a store in another city, a card tucked inside that read, "To Barbara," even though no one in the family had that name. Wrapping paper creased in ways that showed it had been opened before. Children noticed these details faster than adults expected, piecing together the truth while pretending not to see it. The sting came not from ingratitude but from understanding exactly what it meant. Your parents had nothing new to give, so they gave what they could find, hoping Christmas magic might distract you from reality. It rarely did. Those regifted toys and books became artifacts of struggle, objects that carried someone else's name and someone else's holiday before they landed in your hands, always second, always recycled, always marked by fingerprints from a life you never knew. Launched in 1979 but peaking in the 1980s, the Sony Walkman was the ultimate status symbol for music lovers. For the first time in the history of music, you could listen to your favorite mixtape anywhere, on the bus, at the beach, or during your morning jog. Though, let's face it, jogging was optional. The Walkman's portability and sound quality revolutionized how we consumed music, making it a must-have gift. Sony's marketing was genius. They portrayed the Walkman as a lifestyle choice, not just a gadget. Pair it with those classic foam headphones, and you'd feel like a rock star, even if you were just rewinding your cassette for the 5th time. Sony initially doubted its success, but by the mid-80s, over 50 million units had been sold. The Walkman also defined a generation of rebellious teens who could forget the classic scene of someone sulking in their room, headphones on, while their parents yelled in the background. It was an escape from reality. And if you've ever used a pencil to rewind a tape, you know the struggle was real. Today, the Walkman's legacy lives on in every portable music player that followed. Mercury glass ornament garlands were prized possessions in 1980s households, their antique silver finish lending elegance that modern ornaments could not match. Families inherited them from grandparents or discovered them in specialty shops, stringing the delicate spheres across mantels and tree branches where they caught light with an almost liquid shimmer. The vintage look was achieved through double-walled glass with a reflective coating sealed inside, creating that distinctive mirror-like glow that made everything sparkle. What most families never knew was that older versions contained actual mercury compounds in their reflective coating. If an ornament cracked, chipped, or shattered, the toxic metal could escape into the air or onto surfaces where children played. People handled these ornaments carefully because they were fragile, never realizing gentleness was also a matter of safety. When environmental regulations tightened around mercury products, these garlands became prohibited items that families were urged to dispose of through hazardous waste programs. The elegant shimmer that elevated holiday decor now represents a generation's unknowing exposure. Homemade extension cord octopus plugs for tree lights were one of those wildly creative, wildly unsafe tricks families used without hesitation in the 1970s. You would see a single outlet powering an entire forest of cords behind the tree, all tangled together like someone tried to knit with electricity. These improvised clusters allowed families to plug in the lights, the rotating tree stand, the music box, and maybe even an extra lamp or two. No one worried about overheating or sparks or overloaded circuits. It was simply the only way to make everything work with the limited outlets older homes had. People trusted their instincts, not safety manuals. Today, though, building or using something like that is a clear violation of electrical codes. You can be fined, cited, or required to remove them immediately. Modern power strips have surge protection, insulation rules, and testing certifications because the old methods caused more fires than most families ever knew. The shift feels huge when you think about it. Back then it was creativity. Today it is negligence. But anyone who grew up during those years remembers crouching behind the tree, plugging one more cord into the impossible cluster, hoping it stayed together just long enough to make the living room glow. Fruit and nuts in Christmas stockings once carried a kind of old-fashioned charm, but by the 1970s, they had become quiet markers of which families could not afford anything else. Wealthier kids pulled chocolate bars, small toys, and shiny trinkets from their stockings, while poorer children reached in and found oranges, apples, and walnuts still in their shells. Parents tried to frame it as tradition, explaining that this was how their own grandparents celebrated the holidays, but kids knew the difference. An orange is not a bad thing, and cracking walnuts by the fire could even feel cozy. But when your classmates bragged about candy canes and miniature racing cars, fruit felt like a signal flare announcing your family's budget. The worst part was the smell. That sharp citrus scent clung to your hands all morning, mixing with the pine from the tree, permanently tying the aroma of oranges to feelings of not quite having enough. Even today, people who grew up in households that filled stockings with produce instead of presents sometimes flinch at the sight of a holiday fruit basket, remembering exactly what it meant to pull that first orange from the toe of a hanging sock. Released in 1989, the Atari Lynx was the first handheld gaming console with a full-color LCD screen. It was a technological marvel for its time, allowing gamers to play vibrant, arcade-style games on the go. Unlike its competitors, the Lynx featured backlit graphics and even allowed players to rotate the screen for left-handed use, a rare consideration in the gaming world. Despite its innovation, the Lynx struggled to gain traction in a market dominated by the Nintendo Game Boy. One major drawback? Its appetite for AA batteries, 6 of them to be exact, that drained faster than a 10-year-old's patience during a long car ride. Still, the Lynx boasted impressive titles like California Games and Chips Challenge, earning it a loyal fan base. Atari marketed the Lynx as a premium device, but its high price and bulky design made it less appealing to the masses. While it never reached the heights of its rivals, the Lynx paved the way for future handheld consoles by pushing the boundaries of portable gaming. Today, it's a cherished collector's item, proof that sometimes being ahead of your time doesn't always pay off in the moment. Before you go, tell us which too expensive gift you begged for hardest. Tap like if this trip through 80s wishlists brought back memories, and subscribe so you never miss another journey into the holidays we almost had.